welcome to Mac Academy. My name is Randy Smith, and over the next couple of hours we'll be discussing Microsoft Word. We'll be going over the basics of that program. I'd like to welcome each of you to this tape and also to the Mac Academy organization. I'd like to spend, before we dig right into the program, I'd like to spend a few minutes and talk about some of the differences between word processing on the Macintosh computer, word processing perhaps that you're used to on IBMs and IBM compatibles, or some of the earlier programs for the Macintosh. You know, today a lot of people talk about word processing, and they also talk a lot about desktop publishing. One of the first things that you need to realize is that there is a major difference between word processing and desktop publishing. I know you'll go down to your local Apple dealer or one of your software stores, and they'll try and convince you that all you need to buy is one program. For example, if you buy PageMaker, you don't need to buy a word processing program. Or if you buy the all-new Word 4.0, then you won't need to go buy a desktop publishing program because it does everything. A lot of people don't understand the difference between the two types of programs, and so I'd like to talk about that just for a moment. And I'd also like to talk about word processing and how to get the most out of it, and then we'll dig right into the program. First of all, when it comes to word processing and desktop publishing, a good way, I guess, to understand the difference is an experience that I had. I worked at a newspaper for 5 years. I used to come in and I'd sit down at one of those old-fashioned Royal manual typewriters. Whether I was doing a story or an article or an advertisement, I'd sit down at that typewriter and I'd type away. And when I finished, I'd take that hard copy back to the production department. Now, in those days, someone would sit down at a photo typesetting machine and they would type out everything that I had laid out on a nice piece of paper. Now, the word processing part, that was the part of sitting there getting the words on the paper, kind of the creative part, the part where the creative juices are flowing. And then the production department, they would take that document and they would lay it out, and they would set out columns, and they'd put lines between the columns, and they would do headlines. They would take graphics or photos with subheads or sidebars, and they would make your article or your ad look the way that you wanted it to look. That's kind of the difference between word processing and desktop publishing. I was doing the word processing part, they were doing the desktop publishing part. Now today we have some wonderful electronic desktop publishing programs that take all the hard parts and all the laborious steps that it used to take us to get our document to look just like we wanted it to look, and they've taken all the work out of that. There are many good ones out there. PageMaker is one that we use, Ready, Set, Go, Quark Express, all of those are excellent. And the recommendation I'd like to make to you is if you are professionally in the business of doing brochures or doing reports or doing anything other than just standard 8.5 by 11 documents, I would suggest that you get both a professional word processing program and a desktop publishing program. Sure, we can make Word, and we will be doing that in our advanced tape. We'll show you how to do side-by-side columns, and we'll show you how to take a graphic and put it into your document, and we'll show you how to wrap copy around that. But it is extremely difficult. It takes a long time. Whereas in a desktop publishing program with the push of 1 or 2 buttons, you can do exactly you can accomplish the same task. So please understand there is a difference in that you need both. When it comes to word processing, and word processing, as I mentioned, is the function of getting all of your thoughts, your words, copy that perhaps is going to sell or make someone interested in your business, getting that all down on paper. And there are a lot of good programs out there. Macintosh did not invent word processing. I almost wish it did, but the first word processor that I ever used was a program called WORDSTAR on an IBM program. And I kind of get a kick out of IBM people who make the comment that the Macintosh screen is too small. Well, I remember on WORDSTAR, the entire top third of my screen was a menu bar, and that menu bar was just to show me all the commands, all the key commands that I had to remember to do simple functions in the word processing program. And so they had a lot of great programs for the IBM and the IBM compatibles, WordStar, WordPerfect. The first program that came out for the Macintosh was a little program called MacWrite. Many of you may remember that. It came with the machine. And for years, we went a long time without a word processing program because everyone felt, well, they've already got one. The Mac owners, they don't need another one. And then Microsoft came out with Microsoft Word, and they found out that yes, us Mac owners would go buy another program. Today we have a myriad of programs. We have WordPerfect for the Macintosh. We have WordStar is now available for the Macintosh. Full-Write Professional right now. There are a lot of excellent programs. Hopefully you have bought the Word program. That's why you've got it. I recommend it. It's the one we use. It does everything that we need it to do. So there are a lot of word processing programs out there. Since you're using Word and since you're using the Macintosh, I would recommend that you find out what this program is best at and use that to its fullest capacity or capability. So we're going to be looking at the capabilities of Word as we go through the program this morning. Another little caution, I guess, that I want to make. You know, I've seen a lot of word processors, and if you want to get really archaic, the first word processor that I ever saw, and this is going to make me sound kind of old, was a linotype machine. Linotype machine, you'd hit a key, you'd go up into this great big machine, it would find a metal ingot that had the letter, and that would come flying down the tracks, and they'd put some ink on it and hit the paper. It was very slow, it was very expensive, it was very noisy. And also you had to make all your mistakes on the paper before you could go back and correct them, and that was very difficult. Then we went into kind of the stage of the IBM Selectric, I guess, the era of the IBM Selectric. Some of you may still have been in that recently. And the exciting thing about the IBM Selectric was for the first time you could hit a key like an L, and you could get something different than the last time you hit the key by changing the little element in your typewriter. For the first time we could get bold, we could get italics, we could change type fonts and get Bodini or some other type font, and that was exciting. We used to line all the little elements up. But we were still forced to make the errors on the page before, or we had to print it, we had to make the errors on the page before we could make the correction. And you may remember some of the ways that we used to make the corrections. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the little white pieces of paper that we used to string all over our desk, and we'd cram those down in the typewriter and try and get the letter to hit right where it hit before to correct it. Then we went into a great era after that, a nice new product. In fact, the singing group, the Monkees, went around here not too long ago. You may have noticed there were only 3 of them instead of 4. Michael Nesmith was the 4th member, and he did not tour. The reason he did not tour is that his mother invented whiteout, and he inherited about $43 million and didn't need to sing anymore. Wasn't whiteout a great invention? In fact, I remember just sitting back with that and just painting all over our page, and we get these big lumps where the whiteout got a little too heavy. But for those of us that had to do legal documents or contracts, we couldn't go through and white out our mistakes. And so then the real word processing came along, and the reason I go through all this is to drive home the point that the word processor allows us to make all of our errors on the screen before we put them on the page. And I still know a lot of people who, using a word processing program, Word or anyone, they'll go through, do their entire document, print out a copy, and then sit down and start correcting all their errors. If you're going to do that, then you might as well use a typewriter, because you've got a very expensive typewriter sitting here. So the first step to using a word processing program, anyone, is to plan out in advance what you want your document to look like. Take a minute, take a piece of paper and a pencil, and just simply sketch out what you'd like it to look like when it's finished. Are you going to have headlines? Are you going to have footnotes? Are you going to have headers or footers? Are you going to have 1 column or 2 or 3? And you will save a tremendous amount of time when you sit down with your program to make that document on the screen look like you want it to look like when it's printed. Second area is go through all the different regimens that we have to make corrections before you print it out. So now we're here with the Apple Macintosh, and we've got a brand new program, Word 4.0. It's got a lot of nice new features, and we want to go through some of those today. Before I go right into that, let me just go through some definitions, because I want to make sure that I don't use any words in this tutorial that you perhaps are not familiar with. So let me go through each of these definitions very quickly. First of all, when you measure type, when you measure copy, and you're seeing how wide it is, you'll have options as to how to measure that. One option that a lot of printers like to use, a lot of photo typesetters like to use, and a lot of the new programs are allowing you to use, is a measurement called picas, P-I-C-A-S. A pica, there are 6 picas per inch. So all you need to do is measure your copy in inches, divide it by 6, and that'll tell you how many picas wide the width of your copy is. The next thing we like to measure is the height of our copy. How tall is it from the very top of the tallest letter all the way down to the bottom of the lowest ascender that we have in our copy. And that is measured in points, P-O-I-N-T-S, points. And you'll notice that Microsoft Word gives you the option of choosing how many points or how high you would like your letters. The best way to remember that is that there are 72 points in an inch. So if you select 72 points for your copy, you will get letters that are 1 inch tall. If you choose 36 point, they'll be 1/2 inch tall, and 18 point, 1/4 inch tall. Is there any copy that's larger than 72 point? Yes, there is. The days that I worked at the newspaper, we had 344 point type, I remember. We used to call that second coming type. I guess that's the time that we're going to use that. And you'll notice that sometimes when you get very large copy, it'll look really good when it's printed, and sometimes when you go up in size, up to 72 or 90 point type, it won't look very good, and there's a reason for that, and I'll be explaining to you how to make your copy always look good no matter what size you go up in. So that's points. A couple other terms. Default. We're going to talk about the default setting on the computer. Default simply means that the computer has a lot of settings built in. If you open up Word, most likely it will start in Geneva. It might start in 10 point or 12 point. All of those are default settings. It's already set your margins at 0 and 6 inches. It has set your top margin at 1 inch, your bottom margin at 1 inch, a ½ inch on either side. Those are all default settings. You can change those, and we'll go into how to change each of those default settings later on in the tape. Next term is word wrapping. Word wrapping simply means that when you get to the end of a line of type in Word, it'll automatically go to the next line without you hitting a carriage return. I'm sure you're familiar with this if you've used a word processor. The only reason I bring this point up here is that in Microsoft Word, if you do a carriage return, if you reach down and hit the return on your keyboard, you automatically tell Word this is a brand new paragraph, even if it isn't a new paragraph. So remember, whenever you do a manual carriage return, you're telling the machine, you're telling the program, this is a new paragraph. Next term, reverse type. Reverse type simply means white letters on a black background versus black letters on a white background. We use this a lot to draw attention to a certain copy block. There's a few rules when using PageMaker, for example, allows you to do reverse type. There's a few rules when using reverse type. First of all, never use it smaller than 18 point. Also, never put it in long copy blocks, and the reason is it's very difficult to read. I have found that it's best to use reverse type in a headline or perhaps a price that is very large, one block that'll say $49 or $249. Reverse type shows up and stands out very much when you use it in that way. Okay, the last thing that I'd like to mention, actually the last two items as far as definitions. One is leading, L-E-A-D-I-N-G, and this comes back from the good old line of type days. When they wanted to separate a line of copy from another line of copy, they used to put a little strip of lead in between those two. Leading is simply the spacing in between your lines. And a lot of the new programs, including Word, will allow you now to adjust that space, and that is called adjusting the leading. In PageMaker, for example, you can set that. You can have 10-point type on 11-point leading, which will give you 1 point of space in between the two lines. So that is another term. The last term is font, type font. Now in Microsoft Word you are allowed to set the font that you want to use. And again, if we're going to use the Macintosh, let's use it to its fullest capacity. The Macintosh computer will do basically 80% of what a $40,000 photo typesetting machine will do. And mainly what that does is allow you to select your type fonts, your type styles, and your type sizes. It allows you to create any look that you would like with your copy. So type font is very important. Now type font, as I mentioned, is a type style. If I had you sit down and write out a line of copy with handwritten, yours would be a little different than mine. It'd be the same letters, the same words, but a little different style. Right now there are over 5,000 type fonts available for the Macintosh computer. Your computer will hold, without changing some of your software, up to 200 of these type fonts. In my computer I have 131. Of that 131, I basically use 2. I think the other 129 are there to impress people at Mac Academies. But you will find that you can put an incredible amount of fonts into your computer, as I mentioned, up to 200. So of all these 5,000 type fonts that are available out there, you can put those into 3 categories. There are 3 basic categories of type font. The first is called cursive or script. Now what that basically means is the type font that looks like calligraphy or looks like it was handwritten. Venice is the one that most of you have in your computer that's already built in. A few rules when using cursive or script font. First of all, again, never use it smaller than 18 point. Don't use it in long copy blocks. Try not to ever make it bold or to italicize it or to underline it. And especially don't ever use it in all caps. In fact, a general rule in all typography is to stay away from all caps. It's very difficult to read. But with cursive or script type, it is especially difficult to read. In fact, if you've seen some of the different uppercase letters in some of your different fonts, you might not even be able to recognize it. It almost looks like an oriental figure. So use those rules when using a cursive or a script type. The other 2 types of type font, there is serif and sans serif. Now serif is the little line, the little extra line on the end of each of the letters. All the typography classes that I've attended and the studies I've seen shows that serif type is easier to read than sans serif type. Now, basically, the reason we're sitting down at our computers to make it so someone else will read it, so it'll be easy to read. So I have found that serif type is a little more formal looking, and it is also easier to read. You will also find that it looks more like a typewriter typeface, and I find it kind of ironic. Here we all had typewriters, and we threw the typewriters away, and we all went out and spent thousands of dollars on a computer, and then we try very hard to make our document look like it came off a typewriter. Well, I have found that the most popular type fonts are the ones that look like a typewriter. It's a more personal look. Let me just suggest a few type fonts to you. If you are using a laser printer, if you have a laser printer, I would suggest Times. Times is an excellent type font. It is a serif type, which means it's easier to read. It looks like it came off a typewriter, and it is also very condensed, which means you can get a lot of letters in a very small amount of space. If you are not using a laser printer, I would suggest Geneva, Boston, or New York. Again, they fit that criteria. They are serif types. They look like they came off a typewriter. They're not quite as condensed as Times is, but they are excellent. You will find them in a lot of textbooks. A lot of newspapers use that type font. If you would like a sans serif type font, Helvetic is the one that I would suggest. It is a very clean type font. Takes up a lot of space. In fact, I found a lot of textbooks use Helvetic, and I think it's because you can make a very small article look very long. A lot of people use that, and you'll find that in newspapers also, so Helvetic is an excellent type font. Many of you may have the experience of choosing a new type font on the Macintosh computer, and it looks great on the screen, and you go to print it out either on your laser writer or on your image writer, and for one of those two printers it doesn't look very good. It'll look great on one of them, and then you'll go to the laser printer and it won't look good, or vice versa. Let me give you a little rule of thumb when choosing your typefaces so that you know which one will look good on a laser printer and which one will look good on an image writer. You'll notice that most of the type fonts are named after cities: Boston, New York, Geneva, Stuttgart. The basic rule of thumb, there are some exceptions, but basically if it is named after a city, it will look good on your image writer printer. If it is not named after a city, it is most likely a PostScript font, or it was designed to look good on a laser printer. So all of your Courier, Times, Avant-Garde, Zap Dingbat, all of those different chubby, teeny, tiny, each of those different type fonts were designed to be run on a laser printer. So again, rule of thumb, if it's named after a city, look good on your image writer. If it's not named after a city, it is most likely a PostScript font or a laser font, and look good on your laser printer. Okay, those are just some general terms, some general rules, some kind of general rules of thumb, and will help you a lot when planning your document. Now it's time that we turn to the computer. So what I have done is I've already opened up a document in Microsoft Word 4.0. You'll see it's called Randy's Ready Reference. All you do is double click on the application, and you will get a blank piece of paper. Or if you have already done a document, as I have here, all you need to do is double click, and that will launch that application, and you'll be able to start working in that. So here we go. As you can see, this is a regular letter in Word. And I'm going to go through some of the pull-down menus. The way to remember a pull-down menu is to kind of think back to the old blinds like your grandmother had. You used to reach up in the window and you'd pull that blind down. The exciting thing about the Macintosh and Microsoft is that as you pull down each of these menus, most of the words are in English. You'll recognize them. They're not some computer command. And I'm not going to go through each of the pull-down menus right now because we'll be using them in the next couple of hours, but I would like to spend a minute on the File menu. As I pull down the File menu, you'll notice some words that you'll recognize. There's New, Open, Close, Save, Save As, Delete, on down to Quit. You'll also notice opposite some of the commands there will be a little symbol that looks like a four-leaf clover and a letter. What this allows you to do, as Microsoft said, anytime you want to do a command, you have one of two choices. You can either use the mouse and pull down the menu and select one of the commands, or you can simply use the keyboard. So whenever over to the right you see the little command symbol and a letter, that means if you hit Command N, it will do the same thing as selecting New. Command O opens a document. Now New and Open simply means New says I'd like a brand new piece of paper that I've never written on or never given a name to. Open says I would like to open a document that I have already named, that I've already used, which is what I have done here. Close closes the piece of paper, or if you're thinking of your desktop as a real desktop, all that simply means is I'm taking this current piece of paper off of my desk. All right, now the next two items on here, Save and Save As, I'd like to talk about just for a moment. I don't think that there is a worse feeling that anyone has ever had working on a computer than when they have just been typing for 3 or 4 hours. They've been doing probably their best work. I mean, this is their greatest hits. And you've been sitting here and you've been typing away and the creative juices are flowing. And all of a sudden, the lights get a little bright and then they dim and you hear an ominous ding. And you look down and on your screen is a little box. Now down in the bottom of the lower left-hand corner of the box, you'll find a bomb. A little picture of a bomb. It's kind of like Spy versus Spy back in the old Mad magazines. And off to the right of the bomb is probably the greatest understatement that's ever been written in computerdom. And what it basically says is, sorry, a system error has occurred. Now, I don't think there's a person that's ever used a computer, an IBM or a Macintosh or whatever, when experiencing a system error that doesn't think exactly the same thing. And that is, I hope I have not lost my document. Now, I'd like to point something out on the computer here, and that is, as I pull down this file menu, you will notice that the word hope does not appear. You will also notice that there is no such thing as Command M for miracle. The document, all the computer, I guess, fools you a little bit, and that is, as you're typing along, you see all the different words on the screen, you think it's remembering it, and it isn't remembering anything. Remember that the computer will only save a document when you tell it to save that document. As far as the letters that are on your document, if you ever need to tell it to save a document, you have to give the computer that command. You'll notice under File that there are 2 save commands, Save and Save As. Now the rule of thumb is that you should save every screen load. Every time you have got a new screen load of copy, you should save your document. Now to save your document, you simply come down and select Save. Or if you like to use your keyboard, simply hit Command S. Now as I say that, I know you sitting out there watching, you're not going to do that because nobody does. So I'd like to leave one last hint, I guess, when it comes to saving a document, and that is in the 4 years I've used this computer, I have found that 90% of all of the bombs will occur when you go to print your document. And when you think about it, that's the worst possible time it could occur because you're all done. So please get into the habit of, before you hit Command P to print your document, or before you go up under File and go down and select Print, always save your document. If you do that, you'll write me letters of great thanks, because now if the dog runs under the table and grabs the cord and heads out in the backyard, when you turn your computer back on, it'll still be saved. Now, as we go down, the other one is Save As. Save As is a command that allows you to create what is called templates. Now, many of you would like to, for example, create a customer service letter. And let's say the first 3 paragraphs are always exactly the same, but you always have to add a 4th paragraph down at the bottom of your document. And it gets a little tiresome typing out the first 3 paragraphs over and over again. What Save As allows you to do is to create a document that has the first 3 paragraphs. Then, when you want to open that document up and make a change, simply open that document and call it your customer service letter. Make the changes you want to make, add the paragraph that you'd like to add, and then, instead of going to Save, go to Save As. And as you go down to Save As and select that, a little box will appear on the screen and say, what would you like to name this document? At that point, give it a new name, and when you close, you'll find that you have your original document, your customer service document, and you'll have your brand new one also. So that allows you not to have to go back in and recreate the original document. Simply make changes, make additions, and then save that document. Now be sure and always give it another name, a different name, a unique name than the one that you've opened up. If you give it the same name, then what will happen is that it will replace your original document and you'll only have the document remaining that has the changes. Okay, now we're going to get into Microsoft Word. Let me just mention that there are 7 functions I'm going to teach you today. In the advanced tape, or on the advanced tape, or if you go to Mac Academy in the advanced class, you'll learn how to do side-by-side paragraphs, you'll learn how to do headers and footers, and you'll learn how to do style sheets and automatic outlining, and all of those are nice features. But realistically, 99% of the time that you spend on your computer, you will only do 7 functions, and that's what I'm going to teach you in this class. So those are the 7 that we're going to go through here today. And I've learned something about Microsoft software and about Macintosh software, and that is 20% of the features that are on there are so easy that you can pop them into the computer and figure them out. In fact, the biggest advantage to the Apple Macintosh is you don't need to read the manuals to use it. You'll also find that the biggest disadvantage to the Macintosh computer is that you don't need to read the manuals to use it. And so we pop our disk in there and we learn 20% of it, and we never learn the other advanced features that the program has. So the 20% you can figure out by yourself. 20% of it you'll probably never use. We are becoming very feature-laden. In fact, some people call it featureitis in some of the new programs. And there are things it'll do that you'll never want to do. So it's the other 60% that we're going to focus on today. So let's go through those 7 features, 7 functions in Microsoft Word. The first one is called selecting. Selecting. Now, we used to call this highlighting, but now some of the new programs have a function called highlighting also. So we'll call it selecting, which simply means telling the computer, this is what I want to work on. So let's go through the selecting features of Microsoft Word. First of all, to select a letter. To select a letter, you simply click and drag. Now, your mouse only does 3 things. It clicks, it double clicks, and it clicks and drags, which means clicking the mouse down and dragging it over something. So to select a letter, we click and drag over the letter. Next is to select an entire word. Now, we can do it the slow way, and that is we can click in front of the first letter and drag over each letter, or you can do it the quick way, and that is to double click on the word. You can double click on any word that you'd like and select that word. Now, the next selection technique is selecting an entire line. Now, for some of you that have used Microsoft Works or MacWrite, you might be familiar with some of these selecting techniques. This one gets a little unusual because it uses the selection bar. The only thing unusual about the selection bar is you can't see it. So I want you to watch the I-beam, watch the little point where right now that the mouse is, and as it goes to the left, you will notice that the I-beam turns into an arrow. Notice as it goes to the left, it turns into an arrow. When it turns into an arrow, you are in the selection bar. So to select a line, simply go over to the left of the line in the selection bar and click once. To select an entire line of copy, go to the selection bar and click once, and it will select the entire line. Now, to select an entire paragraph, we also use the selection bar. Simply go over to the paragraph and double-click in the selection bar, and it will select the entire paragraph. So a quick review. To select a letter, click and drag over the letter. To select a word, double-click on the word. To select a line, single-click in the selection bar. To select a paragraph, double-click in the selection bar. All right, now the next one is to select multiple paragraphs. Now, you may have noticed that I just used the scrolling bar over here to the side. If you need to go up in your document or down in your document, you simply click on the arrows, and each click will take you down one line at a time. If you're in a big hurry, you can actually grab the little elevator in the shaft and you can move it around in your document. Now, this is very common in all of the different Microsoft and Macintosh programs. Okay, to select more than one paragraph, simply go over to the selection bar, double-click to select the first paragraph, keep holding the mouse down, and as you drag it to the bottom, you will notice it will select every paragraph, one paragraph at a time. So to select more than one paragraph, go over to the left, double-click, and drag the mouse down, and it will select every paragraph, one paragraph at a time. Now, the next selection technique is to select your entire document. Now, this comes in really handy if you have typed about 17 pages and you want to suddenly double space instead of single spacing. You need to select your entire document. To do that, go anywhere in your document. It can be the beginning or the middle or the end. Simply hold your Command key down and click once. If you hold the Command key down, now the Command key is 2 keys to the left of your space bar. If you hold the Command key down and click once, it will select your entire document. Now, as you scroll through your document, you will notice that it's all selected. That one comes in really handy. Now, the next one is not used a lot, but does come in handy, and that is how to select an odd grouping of words. Let's say, for example, that you would like to select 5 words, or you'd like to select a paragraph and a half or a page and a half. The way to do that is to simply click where you would like the selection to start. Now, in this case, I want it to start right before the word I, and then go down and click where you want it to stop. But if I click right now, it would just simply move the cursor to that point, so I have to do something else. So, to make that selection, simply click where you want it to start, go down to where you want it to stop, and hold your Shift key down as you make the second click. And you will notice it selects everything in between those 2 spots. So once again, click where you want it to start, and go down to where you want your selection to stop, hold the Shift key down, and click the second time, and it will click in between those 2 spots. You'll find that that comes in really handy when you want to select something like a page and a half. You simply click where you want it to start and then scroll through to the second page. And as you get to the point where you want it to stop, then you can hold the Shift key down and click, and it will select everything in between those 2 points. Okay, that's selecting. Now everything else that I'm going to teach you in this 2-hour tape is based on selecting. You've always got to select first and tell the computer, this is what I'd like to have you work on. Okay, the next function is called deleting. I want to take something out of my document, and it is extremely simple. Deleting is simply select and then hit your backspace key. On some of your computers it says backspace on your key, it's up in the upper right hand corner. Some of them it says delete, same key. Alright, so right here we've got Word Workshop. If I would like to get rid of the word Workshop, I simply select it and hit my backspace key. Select, backspace key. If I wanted to get rid of my entire document right now, all I'd have to do is select the entire document, hit my backspace key, and it would all be gone. Now, for example, if I would like to delete this paragraph, I simply select it and hit my backspace key. Now, sooner or later, you're going to be using the Macintosh, and you're going to do that, and then you're going to wish you didn't do that. It's called repentance, I guess. And they knew that was going to happen, and so they put in a nice little feature. And you'll notice I just deleted my first paragraph, and all of a sudden I decided I really didn't want to do that. If you will go up under the Edit menu, you will find a nice little command called Undo. Now, if I select Undo, you will notice that my paragraph comes back. The Undo feature. I've decided that what I need in life is an undo button. Whenever I do anything really dumb, I simply push undo and start over again. Well, it works on the Macintosh, it doesn't work in life. Let me just tell you something about the undo button, and that is it will only remember the last function that you did. You cannot go back and say, remember that paragraph I deleted about 6 minutes ago. It only remembers the last function that you did, and it will allow you to bring that back. So that's the undo feature. That's deleting in Microsoft Word. Now the next thing that you're going to want to do is inserting. Now what that means is I want to put copy into my document, or I want to type some copy. And again, it is extremely easy. It is simply click and type. So right now if I want to put the word Workshop into my document, I simply type, click where I want it to go, and type it in. Now of course the nice thing about word processing is that I could type in 29 pages at this point, and it would just keep scrolling my document down and adding all the copy. All right, so we've gone through deleting and we've gone through inserting. Now I want to combine those two into the next function, and that is deleting and inserting at the same time. You're going to want to do that a lot because that's how you correct copy. For example, if you put in an O and it should have been an I, you're going to want to take the O out and put the I in. So let's go through deleting and inserting. Now, two ways you could do it. You could do it the long way, and that is you could highlight what you don't want and push the delete key, and then you could type in what you do want, as I just showed you. Now that's kind of a long way to do it. Microsoft Word allows you to do both of them with one function, and that is simply highlight what you don't want and type in what you do want. So remember to delete and insert at the same time. Highlight what it is or select what it is that you do not want, and simply type in what you do want. Highlight what you don't want, type in what you do want. So if it's just one letter, you want to change an O, for example, to an I, simply highlight it and type in what you want. You're trying to change that from the I to the O, which is what it should be. Select it and then type in the new letter. All right. Now, the next thing that we want to do once we have deleted and we have inserted and we have highlighted is that we are going to want to move copy around in our document. And if you'll remember, if any of you have ever used an IBM or one of those programs, WORDSTAR, WordPerfect, I remember that was very difficult to move copy around. Well, you will find that it is extremely simple in Microsoft Word because it uses cut and paste. Now, let me just talk to you for just a moment without using perhaps the computer here. I've found that the Macintosh computer is an icon-driven machine. What that basically means is it works in pictures. Now, I've found working over the last few years there are two kinds of people. There are some people that think in pictures, and there are others that think in numbers or words. The Macintosh thinks in pictures. And I have found that if you'll ever remember why something does something or how it does it, it isn't as important that you remember exactly what buttons to push or what words to find in the pull-down menu if you remember how it's working. So we're going to be using cut and paste, and I've got a little way of remembering cut and paste. If you'll think back to the days of when you were in kindergarten, They used to give you a pair of scissors. Now in our class they had blunted ends so we wouldn't stab each other. And then they gave us a bottle of paste, which we ate. In fact, I found out I had high cholesterol the other day, and it's probably all that paste rolling around in there. But if you remember what you did, you used to take the scissors and you would cut around the picture, and you'd cut it out, and then you'd take some paste and you'd stick it on the back of the picture, and you would put it where you wanted it. That's exactly how cut and paste works on the Apple Macintosh computer, cutting and pasting. So let's do that in our document now. What we want to do is we want to move the first paragraph somewhere else in our document. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to highlight it, or select it, excuse me. Then we'll go up under Edit, and you'll come down, and again, remember the pair of scissors, we cut it out. We just selected Cut out of the Edit menu, and you'll notice it disappeared. Now all you have to do is go down into your document where you would like it to appear, select a point, an insertion point, now go back up to Edit, and again, remember kindergarten, we simply paste it in, and there it is. You cut it out, and then you paste it where you want it. Now, let me just ask you a question, and I hope if you've been following along, since it simply disappeared, where did it go? Well, the Macintosh has two storage areas. There are two storage areas in the Macintosh computer. One is long-term, one is short-term. Now, one of them is RAM and one of them is ROM, but don't remember that. It doesn't have to be that technical. You have a scrapbook under the Apple menu. That's your long-term. What that means is if you cut something out and paste it into the scrapbook, it will be there when you turn your computer off and turn it back on. You have another storage area, and it's really just a holding area, and it's called the clipboard. You never see it, but it's a little tiny storage area that when you have taken something, and you just want it held for a few minutes, and you're going to be doing something with it, it goes to the clipboard. Cut and paste utilizes the clipboard. So what that means is when I cut that paragraph out, it went to the clipboard until I told it where to paste it. Now again, remember, the clipboard will only hold one thing at a time, and it'll only hold the last item that you put on it. As a matter of fact, when you use undo, that's where it goes. And so if you ever put something on the clipboard, you turn your computer off, when you turn it back on, it will not be there anymore. So that's how cut and paste works. All right, let's go back down into the program now. So we've gone through 3 of the functions. Now the next one that we want to go through, and this is one of the ones that you'll probably be using the most, is style changes. I want to change the look of my copy. I want it to look differently. Now the first thing that most people want to do is they want to take a word, a headline, and they want to make it bold, or they would like to italicize it, or they'd like to underline it. Now there are actually 3 ways to do this in Microsoft Word, so let's go through one of the ways first of all, and that is under Format. Now you'll notice I highlighted whatever it was I wanted to change. I now go under Format, and down here on the bottom you will notice the commands, bold. So if I select that, my word is now bold. If I come down under Italic, you'll notice it is now italicized. If I come down and select Underline, it is now underlined. Now also, if I decide I do not want any of those style changes, I go back under Format and I come down and deselect bold. Now if you will think about those selections as toggle switches, they're either turned on or they're off. So right now, if I want to go down Italic, as you can see the little check mark says it's turned on. I can deselect that. And now I can come down and deselect Underline. Now if some of you have been using Microsoft Word for a while and you made some words in your document bold or underlined them and later went and changed those, and all of a sudden you went to type and you noticed that all of a sudden you were typing in a new typeface or a new size, I can tell you what the reason for that is and how to keep that from happening. A lot of times what happened is somebody went down and made a word bold, and then they went down and underlined it. A little later you changed your mind, and some of you figured out that if you come down and select plain text, it will take them away those commands all at once. It was kind of a little shortcut. Well, the problem with that is plain text also takes away any other commands that you've given your document. So if you started up in Geneva and you've changed to times, you started in 10 point and you've gone to 12, and you go down and select plain text, it erases all those commands. So the key to making sure that you stay in the same typeface and the style that you're in is simply go down and deselect bold and come down and deselect underline if you do not wish those commands to be there. Okay, that's one way to do it. Now there's a little shortcut that I'd like to give all of you right now, and actually these shortcuts work in almost all of the Macintosh applications, and it'll save you a great deal of time. Now if you will remember that what you're going to do on all of these commands is you're going to press 2 keys at once. And they are your Command key and your Shift key. Now in the old version 3.02 it didn't tell you about these on your pull-down menu. Now under Format you'll even find that it shows you these commands. They are key command equivalents of what we've just been doing. So you're going to start all these commands by holding two keys down, your Command key and your Shift key. Now your Shift key is the uppercase key, or to make all your letters uppercase. Alright, so right now if we want to make the word workshop bold, we hold down Command Shift B, and you'll notice it went bold. So Command Shift B makes your work bold. Command Shift I will italicize it. Command Shift U underlines your word. So notice I haven't even used the mouse at all, haven't moved it around at all. I've just used my keyboard. Now again, I can also deselect or turn the toggle switch off by doing the same commands. Command Shift I takes away the italics, Command Shift U takes away the underline, Command Shift B takes away the bold. So you will find that as a shortcut, and as I said, that works in a lot of your other programs, your other Macintosh programs. Now there's one other shortcut using these same commands that will save you more time. I used to get so frustrated when I try and decide the size I wanted my copy. I'd go up and I'd choose 9 point and it'd be too small, and then I'd choose 36 point and be too large, and then I'd choose 18 point and be too small, and I'd go back and forth and waste a lot of time. And I used to wish, wouldn't it be nice if you could look at the word workshop there and say, what would that look like one size bigger? What would it look like another size bigger and another size bigger? No, that's too big. I'd like to go smaller, smaller, smaller. Well, that is now available. So let me tell you how to do that. If you want to make something larger and see how it would look in a larger size, simply hold down your Command key, your Shift key, and then remember back to arithmetic and some of your algebra, and hit the greater than key. Now if you don't remember the symbol of the greater than, it looks like a V laying on its side. Greater than is on the same button as your period, and the less than key is on the same button as your comma key. So if I want to make my words larger, I hit Command Shift greater than. If I want it larger again, Command Shift greater than. Now if I want to go down in size, Command Shift less than, Command Shift less than, Command Shift less than. I think you'll find that as a great shortcut. That has saved me literal hours on the computer by using that in Word and other programs. So again, Command Shift less than takes it down sizes, Command Shift greater than will take it up. Alright, so that's the second way that you can do the size. And or first way that you can do the size. The second way to do the size is to pull down your font menu. Font. Now under font you will notice all your sizes. We have, if you want to make it 12 point, select 12 point. If you'd like to go up to 24 point, you can go up to 24 point, all the way down to 9 point. By the way, 9 point has a special use, and that's for real estate contracts. Okay, so we go back up 12 point, all the way back up to 18 point. Now, by pulling down the font menu, you can also change the type font. Now, in the old Microsoft 3.02, it only listed a few type fonts here, and you had to go into the character dialog box to get all of the choices of all the fonts that are in your computer. Now, you will find there's only, looks like 8 or 9 here in this computer, but if I had 100 in here, it will simply scroll down. You'll also notice that they have changed position. The points used to be down the bottom and the fonts used to be on top, and those are now in different positions. So if I want to change my type font, I've still got Workshop highlighted. Then I select Boston. There's what Boston looks like. If I want to select Helvetica, there's Helvetica. And on down the line, there's Times, which is what we started in. So for a quick way to change size or to change font, simply select what it is you'd like to change, go up under font and select the size and the type font that you want. I'd like you to notice something at this point. I'd like you to notice the sizes, 9, 10, 12, all of them are outlined. Let me show you what I mean by outlined. If I select Boston, for example, you will notice now that 12 is outlined, but 9, 10, 14, 18, 24 are all solid. If I come down here and select Venice, then you'll notice that 12 and 14 and 24 are outlined, and the others are solid. Now those are done for a reason. Let me just explain this for a minute. When they created the Apple Macintosh computer, they realized that there were really roughly 250 spots in there for fonts. Apple themselves used 50 of those, and so it left you with roughly 200. Problem is that every font in every size is seen by the computer as a separate font. What that means is times 10 is one font, times 12 is another, actually times bold is another, and so they quickly ran out of room. So what Apple decided to do was, what we're going to do is we're only going to install certain sizes of each font into the computer. Now, without getting too technical, and I don't want to lose anybody out there, but basically what that says is some of the sizes are installed in the computer, and others the computer has to make a version of that size. What does that mean to you? That simply means that some sizes are going to look better when they're printed than other sizes. So, to allow you to know the difference, what they have done is they have outlined the installed sizes, and they have put the sizes that are not installed in solid black. Now again, what does that mean to you? Simply this: the sizes that are black aren't going to look as good as the outline sizes. So if you're always trying to make your copy look good, always select the outline sizes. Now I use times all the time, so I installed every size in times. Geneva or some of the others, Venice, I hardly ever use them, so there's only a few sizes installed. Now that also is going to come in handy in a few minutes. All right, so that's the way that you can change very quickly both your sizes and your fonts. Now there's another way that allows you a few more options and is a little slower, and that is if you'll go under Format and select Character. Now this opens up your character dialog box, and for some of you that have not used 4.0 before, you'll notice it looks a little different. First of all your fonts now are in what is called a drop-down menu, and if I click on the little arrow there, they all are hidden under Font. If I want the sizes, I simply click on the arrow. Now, it will only show you when you're in the character dialog box the installed sizes. Those are the only ones that will show up. All of those sizes that were black under the font will not show up. And you'll notice now you have options of color. You got black, blue, green, magenta, all the different colors, and you can simply select each one of those. If you've got a color monitor, they'll show up in the different colors. If you've got a color printer, then this allows you to print out each of your different plates. You can print out a black plate, a blue plate, and whatever. All right, and you'll notice all of your different options. You've got a lot of underline options now, your superscript, subscript, and also, as I was mentioning before, you have got even some spacing options now, which we'll go into later on. Right now, the only other thing I wanted to point out here is what if you want a size of copy that is larger than the options that it gave you? I think ours went up to 24 at that point. What would happen if I wanted 119 point type? All you do is come up here to the size box and type in whatever size you'd like. And here I type in 119. If I put on OK, then the computer will basically break its rear end trying to come up with 119 point type. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the tape that sometimes when you go up in size, it'll look really nice when it's printed and sometimes it won't. What is the secret to that? The secret to that are those outline sizes. So here's a little rule to remember. Whenever you're going up in size and typing in sizes that are larger than the ones given, always go up in multiples of the outline sizes. Always go up in multiples of the installed sizes. Now, if you'll remember, 12 was installed in one of the fonts we were looking at. So if you were going to go up in size in that font, go to 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72. Don't go to 31 or 35 or 59, because again, the computer will have to make a version of that and it won't look good when it's printed. So if you want larger sizes, just think about it. Find one of the installed sizes that's outlined, double it, triple it, quadruple it, and it'll always look as good as the smaller size. Okay, we don't want to keep with 119 points, so let's go back to 24 point and say OK. And now when we go back to our document, there we are at 24 point. Okay, so that is how you change the sizes and the styles and the fonts in Microsoft Word. And as you'll notice, you've got a lot of options. There's a lot of quick ways to do it. There are a lot of longer ways that give you more options. Now, we have spent about a third of the tape so far going through the preliminary parts and through basically the first 5 techniques that you need to learn how to use. And that means that we've only got 2 left, and obviously we don't have a great deal of time, or we've got a lot of time left on the tape, and so they must be a little harder, and they are. And that is utilizing the ruler in Microsoft Word. Now, a lot of you that have used Microsoft Works or have used MacWrite know about a ruler. That in those programs, you went up and you got the ruler, and you went down and you put it into your copy. You literally put it above the paragraph. You got into Word, and all of a sudden the ruler looked the same, but when you went to use it, then suddenly you couldn't move it, and you lost the security of having it right above the paragraph. And so one of the most confusing parts, I guess, to switching to Microsoft Word is using the ruler. So let's go through that right now, and let me just give you a golden rule to using the ruler in Microsoft Word, and that is simply this. The ruler will command whatever you select in your document or whatever you're going to type. Now let me say that again. You're going to bring down a ruler and we're going to make some changes. And you're going to wonder, will that change my entire document? Will it change what I'm going to type? Just remember that any changes we make in the ruler will only affect if your document's already open. If you do not select anything in the document, it won't change anything. If you select a paragraph, which is what we're going to do here in a minute, and you make a change in the ruler, it will change that paragraph only. So again, the rule is the ruler will command whatever you're going to type or whatever you select in your current document. And I think that'll make a little more sense here in a minute. So let's go back to the computer here and let's bring out our ruler. Now the ruler can be found. You can either hit your Command key and R, or you can go up to Show Ruler. And there is the ruler, and it'll look familiar to most of you. So let's go through all the options in the ruler. First of all, you'll notice some little boxes under the 3-inch mark. 3 to 4 inch, there are 4 boxes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are your justification boxes. Justification. So let's change the justification of this paragraph. Now again, I select it because the ruler will only command or make changes in what I select or what I'm going to type. Right now you'll notice that the first box is already selected. That's the default selecting. That is justified left, flush left. So you'll notice if you never make any changes, every time you type it will be flush left. The second option or the second box is centered. And you'll notice that centers my paragraph. You'll also notice that paragraphs don't look too good centered. The third option is flush right. And the fourth option is justified left and right. Now let me just mention something about justifying both left and right. You'll notice it looks really nice. We've got a nice straight left edge and we've got a nice straight right edge. But you'll also notice whenever you use this option that you'll get some strange spacing in your document. Some words will have 1 space between them, some will have 2, some might even have 3. So this is a nice little option. It does make it look good, but remember you give something up when it looks really strange is if you only got 3 words in your sentence. It'll stick one way over to the left, it'll stick one way over to the right, and it'll leave the third one floating around in the middle somewhere. I found that the key to using this is very narrow columns. There isn't a lot of space to fill, and it looks really nice to be justified if you've got narrow columns. When you get 8.5 by 11, you can really get some strange looks sometimes. So again, let's go through the 4 options. We can go flush left, we can go centered, we can go flush right, and we can dual justify it both left and right. Now as I mentioned, paragraphs don't look too good centered. Headlines look great centered. So if I come up here and select my headline and hit centered, it will center my headline. If I select my subhead and hit centered, it will center my subhead, and you'll notice those look very nice. So those are your justification boxes. Let's go on to the next ones. We'll use this paragraph again. Those are spacing boxes, and they're under the 4-inch mark, and there are 3 of them. 1, 2, and 3. Single space, double space, and triple space. Now, you'll notice if I want to change my spacing, I simply select the second box, there's double space. Select my third box, there's triple space. Single, double, and triple. Now for you purists in the audience, you will find out that this is not really single, double, and triple. It is really space, space and a half, double space. If you ever go to compare it to a typewriter, you'll find out that it is space, space and a half, double space. Okay, so that's your spacing options. If you want to change your entire document, simply select your entire document and then hit the one desired. If you want to start a document, just go ahead and select that to begin with, and of course it'll affect whatever you're going to type. The next little option, under the 5-inch mark, there are 2 boxes. The one that is already selected and a second one. I have a certain way that I like to type. You'll notice in this document that I single space all of my paragraphs, and then you'll notice I double space in between paragraphs. And for most of you, if you want to double space in between paragraphs, you'd hit your carriage return twice. Well, in Microsoft Word, they've made that a little easier, and that is they put a little box that if you will select this, excuse me, they will automatically give you 2 spaces every time you hit a carriage return. So the second box, when selected, will give you 2 spaces every time you hit a carriage return, which is normally for most of us between paragraphs. Now, for you 3.02 users, you remember a little X sitting over here. The little X cancels all your commands in your ruler. You will now notice that there is a little scale icon, and we'll be using that in a few minutes. So those are the options between the 3 and the 5-inch mark. All right, now what we want to do is we want to go into the margins. We want to set margins. Now setting margins in Microsoft Word is extremely simple. And I found that the best way to remember that is, again, to remember back a few years and to remember back to the old manual Royal typewriters. We used to have these big, heavy typewriters. We use them for anchors nowadays, but they had these big manual typewriters. And to set a margin, you'd go up on top of the carriage, and there was a ruler along the carriage. And there was a button up on the top of the ruler, and you'd push that button down, and you'd move it over to where you wanted your margin and let go, and that became a hard, fast margin. Then if you started to type, and didn't do a carriage return, you'd just type over the same letter over and over again. Well, Microsoft Word setting margins is exactly the same. So let's go back here to the computer for a moment. And if you look up on your ruler, there is a little diamond-shaped triangle up here, little triangle, excuse me, up here under the 0, and a little triangle under the 6. Those are your two margins. Now to change my margins, I simply select what I'd like to change and reach over here and click on the right-hand margin and drag it to where I want it. Now watch my paragraph. As I drag my margin, you'll notice it changes. Now why is not my entire document changing? Remember, the ruler only commands what I've selected or what I'm going to type, so the rest of my document is staying with the same margins. So this allows you to set different margins for every paragraph if you'd like. So to set the right-hand margin, simply click and drag. Now, to set the left-hand margin works exactly the same. I simply click and drag, and you'll notice immediately the margin follows whatever setting that I have used. Simply click and drag. Now, if some of you have a good TV and you can see really well, you'll notice that the left-hand margin looks a little different than the right-hand margin. It is actually 2 triangles, whereas the right-hand margin is 1. That allows you to do what is called custom left-hand margins. What that means is the top part of the triangle can be moved independently from the bottom part. Now again, I find that if you'll remember certain rules, you'll do better on the computer. You might want to remember this rule. The top triangle commands the first line of your paragraph. The bottom triangle commands the rest of your paragraph. Top triangle, the first line. Bottom triangle, the rest of your paragraph. What that means is you can set a different margin for the first line of your paragraph. So let's do that. If I reach up here and I grab the first triangle, you'll notice it moves by itself, and if I move it over to here and let go, I get this. I want everybody to look at that paragraph. You'll notice now that my margin for the first line is right there. My margin for the rest of the paragraph is there. Does anybody see a nice use for that? That's your custom left-hand margin. That's your automatic indentation. Now, how have you been indenting? Well, most people reach down and hit their space bar 5 times. Actually, most people don't. Most people hit their tab key. And they'll notice that the tab key goes over too far. It goes over 8 spaces, but most people do it because it's easy. So again, if you want to set your automatic indentation, by the way, 2.5 of these little marks over here happens to be 5 spaces, which is kind of standard. You can set that anywhere you like. If I move it over to here, you can see I can bring that margin or that indentation anywhere that I'd like. All right, so now every time that you do a return, you'll automatically, your first line will be indented. Now, not only can I move the top part of that triangle to the right, I can also move it to the left. This is officially called a hanging indent, by the way. Sounds like something you get on your foot. Now watch what I mean. If I move the entire margin over to the left, I can reach up and take the top part of that margin and move it back. Or excuse me, we moved it all to the right. Now I can take the top margin and move it to the left, and I end up with something that looks like that. And you say, well, that's really nice, but why would I ever use it? Some of you that have been trying to do this see an immediate use for it. So again, watch what I've done. I've moved the top line to the left of the rest. When would we use that? Well, let me give you a good example. Let's say right now we were going to do a lease for a piece of property. Now let's just pretend right now that we've got people standing there in front of us and we're over on our Macintosh and we're going to type out the rules to living in our property. So we sit down and we say, the following are the rules for living in my house. Number 1, I want you to keep your crummy dog off of my brand new carpet. If you don't, I will shoot both you and your dumb dog. So there. Okay, then you go down to number 2. Okay, now a lot of you have had the opportunity of printing a document that needs something like this. You've used 1, 2, 3, or 4, some nesting, or you've used A, B, C, D, or a lot of you've used bullets. Now realistically, when you typed your document, is this what you wanted it to look like? It isn't. What you wanted is you wanted the 1 and the 2 to line up nice and even, and then you wanted all your words to line up nice and straight. Now, let me just mention something to you here for a moment. A lot of you, when you started Microsoft Word, went in and tried to make this happen. And how did you make it happen? Well, most of you figured out, well, there's got to be a way to force that line over. So let me show you what a lot of you did. First thing that you did, you said, well, I know what I'll do. I'll just click in front of carpet here, and then I'll hit my space bar. Now, when you hit your space bar, and you may not be able to see my space bar right now, but it freezes up. Nothing happens. And you say, well, that's all right. What I'll do is hit my tab key. Now, when you hit your tab key, you get something like that. And you say, well, that's not a problem either. What I'll do now is I'll just hit my backspace key. So when you hit your backspace key, then it goes right back to where it was. And about now is when people start getting frustrated. So what I have found most people did to make this happen is you typed your first line of copy. You anticipated when your second line of copy was going to jump down on the next line. You did a manual carriage return, and then you spaced it over one at a time and tried to line it up. I had a lady the other day tell me it took her 4 hours to do 2 pages, 1 through 10, trying to line it up. Now, you can do it that way if you'd like, but watch this. All you have to do is select your copy and go over and say, okay, I want my words to line up there, and I would like my numbers to line up there. And you've got an automatic exactly what you wanted, which you'll all find is extremely easy. Now let me just mention, I did that kind of the long way just so that you could see how it worked. And that is, I grabbed the whole margin and moved it over, and then I grabbed the left-hand margin and moved it back. There's a simpler way to do that, and that is if you would like to move the bottom triangle all by itself, all you need to do is hold down your Shift key. Now when you hold down your Shift key, that will allow you to move the bottom independently. Now if you do not hold down your Shift key and you just grab it, the whole margin moves. So again, if you want to move the bottom to command the whole rest of your paragraph other than the first line, simply hold down the Shift key and move it to where you'd like that to be. And again, that's called hanging indent. All right, well, we're coming along here. You now know how to do margins in Microsoft Word. Now let's get into tabs. In the new program 4.0, they made some dramatic changes. And most of those dramatic changes you will see in our advanced class. 2 of the most dramatic you will see in the basics class, and one of them's coming right up, and that's when it comes to making tables. So I will show you both the old way and the new option for doing tables. So let's go through setting tabs first of all. Your tab settings are up in the ruler from the 1.5 inch mark over to about the 2.5 inch mark, and you'll notice there are 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. To set a tab, by the way, Microsoft Word already has tabs set, default settings, if you don't change them. And that is, if I hit my tab button, it will go over to the 1/2 inch mark, the 1 inch mark, the 1.5, 2. So you have tabs already set every 1/2 inch. Most of you have been using those. Now if you want to set a tab other than those, then you can come up here and set the tabs in your ruler. There are 4 kinds of tabs. So let me explain each of the different tabs. The first one, if I set tab number 1, will line up all of my copy to the right of my tab mark. If I select tab number 2, that will center all of my copy under the tab mark. And I used to say in my class, that was a nice little option, but I never saw what you'd use it for. And one person mentioned that that's a good way to center your heading over your tab, over the column. So again, the second tab centers your copy under the tab. The third tab, when you set that mark and you go to type, will type all of your copy to the left of that tab mark. So again, and we'll use the 4th one here in a minute. The first one, which is your default tab, always puts all your copy to the right. The second one centers your copy. The third one puts all your copy to the left. So let's set some tabs. The first thing you do is click on the one you want. If it happens to be the first one, you don't even have to click on it because it's already selected. Now, you don't have to drag, you don't have to do anything. Just simply go up into your ruler and click where you'd like a tab. I'd like one right there, I'd like one right there, and I'd like one way over there. And you'll notice it put the little arrow in my ruler so I can see it. Now if I hit my tab button, it automatically goes over to 2, goes to 3, and goes over to 4.5. And when I backspace, it goes back to those same settings. So to set a tab, simply click on the one you want, go up into the ruler, and click where you'd like that tab. Now you can still move them if you'd like. You can move them over to where you'd like them. Now if for some reason you don't want those tabs anymore, to get rid of a tab, simply click on it, pull it out of the ruler, and get rid of it. And you'll notice they've all disappeared. So let's do a quick table right now. Let's say this was a sales report. And this first one is for January. And we go over to our 2-inch tab mark, and this is for Susan. Now the next thing I want to do is put a column of numbers. And I don't know how many of you have tried to make a column of numbers line up in Microsoft Word, but it's almost impossible to make them line up evenly. You'll start getting a wavy line unless you use the decimal tab. The only way to get a column of numbers to line up in Word is to use the decimal tab, and that's the 4th tab right here. So we're going to have a column of numbers. Let's select the decimal tab, go up and say we would like that column at the 4-inch mark. Now when I tab over there, it will allow me to type in the numbers. So I type in 112. Then we go down to February, and this is still Susan's sales. She sold $89 in February. And now we'll go down to March, and Susan sold $212. And in April, Susan sold $41. She had a bad month. Okay, now you will notice that my numbers line up exactly because of the tab mark, the decimal tab setting. You don't even have to put decimals, by the way. If you just want to put whole numbers, it takes them for granted that there is a tab after the last whole number. So that's the way that you use the tab settings. That's the way you line up numbers. Now, while I have got this open at this point, I'd like to show you another feature of Microsoft Word. And that is, wouldn't it be nice while we had this if we could make Microsoft Word add the column of numbers? Now the new 4.0 not only adds, it subtracts, multiplies, and divides, which we'll go into on the advanced tape. But right now, if I wanted to add this column of numbers, and this works exactly the same in 3.02, all I have to do is a couple of functions, and the first one I need to do is to highlight this column. And you'll also notice that's the first little problem you're going to have. Now watch what happens when I go and try and highlight this column of numbers. The 112, no problem. I drop down, and right now, if I do that, I'm going to add up 3 Susans, February, March, and April, which is really not what I was trying to do. What I wanted to do is I wanted to come along and to be able to highlight the column only. I was doing this the other day, and a fellow in my class said, will mine do that? No, it's just mine. It's the only program that'll let me. All right, let me show you how to make that happen. To highlight a column, simply hold down your Option key, and your Option key is right to the left of your Command key. Hold down the Option key, and now as you drag, it will just drag over the numbers. This comes in really handy. Let's say right now if I wanted to make, as I look at my report here, I look down and I say, you know, Susan would look a lot better if that was in bold. And used to, I would have to come over and I'd have to highlight that one and go up and select bold, and then highlight that one and go up and select bold. Now, all I have to do is hold down the Option key, and you'll notice that I can select all 4 Susans at once. Now I can go up to bold, and you'll notice now I have 4 bold Susans, which might be kind of interesting. All right, so let's get back to adding this column of numbers. To add the column of numbers, simply hold down your Option key, highlight the column of numbers. Now, if you've still got 3.02, you're going to want to go under Document. If you've got 4.0, you'll come under Utilities. A lot of the features have been moved over to Utilities. And you'll want to come down and select Calculate, or you can hit your Command equals button. Now when you do that, it'll look like nothing happened, but if you'll look way down in the lower part of your screen, you will see $454 appeared in this little box. That just happens to be the total of that column. Now, if you just want to know what it is, you can stop right at that point. If you'd like to print that total, now all you do is select where you'd like it to show up, go up under Edit, and go to Paste, and there's your total. Now, most of you probably figured out just now that since I went up to paste, that number was residing in the clipboard. That is really nice, allows us to paste it, but it also presents a problem. And that problem is if I notice that some of my numbers are wrong, and I go back to correct those numbers, let's say that should be 412 instead of 312, and I make the change, you'll notice it does not change my total. Once it goes up to the clipboard, they are disassociated, the components to the sum, and what that means is you have to go through and add them up again if you go through and change your totals. All right, so that's adding and that's doing columns. Now, as I mentioned, in the new Microsoft Word, it has given us a brand new option which makes making tables extremely easy. As you'll notice, the way I did those tables there, I had to set all my tabs and then try and line them up and make them even and do all those different items. Right now, let me make sure that my preferences are set correctly here. I want to show the table grid lines, so we're okay. Let's go up, and there's a new feature which you will find under Document. And what that new feature allows you to do is to create a table and to create all the parameters of that table long before you're there. So let's go up under Document and go down to Insert Table. Now, if any of you have used Microsoft Excel, this is going to start becoming very familiar to you. It simply asks you now, how many columns would you like? Well, we would like 3. It asks you how many rows you would like, and I would like 4. Now, as you select these, it will automatically allow you to say what width you would like, or if you use a certain amount of columns, it will figure that for you. And I say, okay, I want 3 columns, I want 4 rows. And if I go down here to OK now, you will notice that a little grid will appear in my program, and it will show where I am going to make those columns. Now, if you want to see what those look like, we can go up here and we can go down to the Show Symbols and come up in our program, and there we have got our new grid. You'll also notice now that I can click on the little scale icon and change my ruler. I actually have 4 of the different ruler settings. I can have a ruler setting that shows a margin for each of my columns, so I can change the margin. I can come up and go back to the original ruler. I can come to this one that shows a little T, and I'll leave it there for just a moment. Now that I've got my little grid showing here, and you'll notice it gave me 3 columns and it gave me 4 different rows coming down. I can now type Susan, for example, and now you use your Tab button. And your Tab button works just like Excel. It'll go from cell to cell, and I can go along now and select and put in each of the different factors. I could put in January at this point and go along and put my different sales figures. Now, if I want to change the sizes, I can go up into my ruler and I can grab that little T, and you'll notice I can move. Now, at the moment, the only one that's moving is where my cursor was. So it's the top row. Get that back to basically where it was. And I can set these any way that I'd like. So you now have 2 options when it comes to making tables, and you will find that this table function, especially if you're used to Microsoft Excel, will be extremely easy and functional for you if you've used those programs before. Okay, now let me turn my symbols off again so they don't clutter the page. All right, our document's starting to look just about how we want it. We have set our margins, we have set basically our columns, we have set all of our tabs, and we have our program looking pretty much like we're going to want it to look. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come back up into our document, and we're going to make sure that it is spelled correctly. And we're going to use the spell checker. Now, those of you that have had Word before, the old version 3.02, you will find a much bigger dictionary in 4.0. You will also find a thesaurus that is built in, and you'll also find that it'll now search for words phonetically instead of just looking at the first 3 letters. So let's go through how to do a spell check. First thing I always do is come up and click at the beginning of my document. If you don't do that, you do a spell check, it'll always ask you, do you want me to go back and start at the beginning? If you click at the beginning, then it won't ask you that. All right, so now, again, if you've got 3.02, it'll be under Document. If you've got 4.0, under Utilities, go down to Spelling, which is also Command L. Now, what that does is that opens up 2 dictionaries. It used to be called the Main Dictionary, now it's called the MS Dictionary. It'll open that up, and also the User 1 Dictionary. Now, the key to using the dictionary is to remember that it is not a spell or a spelling checker, it is a spelling comparer. What that means is that it will look for any time you've got a group of letters with a space on one side and a space on the other, it says that must be a word. Then it looks through its dictionary to see if it can find that word. If it can, it says the word spelled correctly. If it cannot, it says the word is misspelled. Now, sometimes neither one of those cases is correct. So my first, I guess, bit of advice on using the spelling checker is to don't rely too heavily on it. Also remember, it checks for misspelling of words. It does not check for misuse of words. In other words, if you put in T-H-E-I-R and it should have been T-H-E-R-E, it will not find that as a misspelled word. If you wanted A-N and you put in A-N-D, it still finds A-N as a correctly spelled word and will not stop. So when I first got mine, I'd spell check and send it off and had all kinds of errors in it. So if you, again, remember what it's doing, it'll make more sense to you. So let's go back to the computer now. And you'll notice that it's opened up a dialog box, and it says right now, I'm already here are 2 dictionaries. MS Dictionary, that's the big one. You can't make any changes to that. You can't add to it, you can't subtract to it. The other one, User 1, you will be able to make some changes to, so let's start. So we click on Start Check, and it starts looking for a word that it does not recognize. The first word that it does not recognize is throt, T-H-R-O-U-G-H-T. Now whenever it finds a word it does not recognize, you have three choices. There are three things you can do. First thing you can do is say it's okay, leave it alone, no change. This one is not okay. Second thing you can do is spell it yourself. Now in this case I just made a typo, so I'll type in T-H-O-U-G-H-T. That's correct. Now I come down and click on change. It'll go into my document and make that change. The next word it finds is tomorrow. Now as I mentioned, there are three choices. You can say no change, leave it alone, or you can say let me type it, or you've got a third choice, which is help me. Now that's the one I use the most. And the reason is normally when I misspell a word, the reason I misspelled it is that I don't know how to spell it. So let's go through and now ask the machine, help me find the spelling of tomorrow. Now when you hit suggest, it will try and figure out what you were trying to spell and give you suggestions. So let's hit suggest, and it comes up and basically says, all right, you were trying to spell tomorrow, tomorrows, or Tommyrot. Now, it even selects the one that it's pretty sure you were trying to spell and puts it down here in the box, and you say, you're exactly right, that's what I was trying to spell. So now all you have to do is hit change. The next word it finds that it does not recognize is valuable. So I say, I don't know how to spell that either. And it says, okay, suggest. And you will notice now that it pulls up valuable, valuably, and it even pulls up some word that if you have a slight speech problem, that maybe it thought you were trying to do. Now if it happens to be any of these words, then you simply click on those and it will automatically put it in the box. But again, it was right, it is valuable. I say change, it makes that change. Now it brings up the word Mac. You will notice Mac is not misspelled, it's simply not in its dictionary. So I say no change. The next word it brings up is my first name. After a while, it gets a little tiresome every time you do a letter and do a spelling check on it to have your name come up as misspelled, or your city, or your company. So this allows us now to put words into the dictionary. First rule, putting words in the dictionary, make sure it is spelled correctly before you put it in the dictionary. Now, to put it in the dictionary the first time when you've never used it, simply click on user 1. That opens up that dictionary. Now come down and click on plus, and that automatically puts the word up into the dictionary. Now, when you finish this document, you will find a brand new little icon that says User 1 Dictionary on your desktop. Put that up in your system folder. And from now on, whenever you use it, simply come and click on plus. Let me go over that again just for some of you. When you finish and you have put a word into the User 1 Dictionary, you clicked on User 1, then you click on plus. When you finish the document, you'll find a brand new little icon that'll say User 1 Dictionary. Take that icon up and put it in your system folder. Now from now on, every time you want to put a word in that dictionary, it will automatically open that dictionary and put that word in it. So all you got to do is click on plus after that first time. Now what if you do click on User 1 again? Well, when you finish, it will say you've already got a dictionary called User 1. What would you like to call this one? And you say, well, I'd like to call this one medical terms or technical terms. So it allows you to create more than one dictionary. All right, let's go back to our document now, and we go to Continue Check. And it says, I've reached the end of your document. It's all spelled correctly, and I say thank you very much, and I'm done. Again, please do not rely too heavily on your spelling checker because it does not check punctuation. It does not check misuse of words, and sometimes there are some words that perhaps are not in its dictionary. So it's a nice little tool, and certainly the new one in Microsoft 4.0 is much better than the old one and the thesaurus and all that, but don't rely too heavily on it. All right, now it is getting time to print. And here is where, again, you will find a major change from 3.02 to 4.0. In 3.02, you had two ways of looking at your document. You had the galley view, and that's what we've been typing in all along. And then you had what was called page preview. Page preview allowed you to see a thumbnail sketch of your document. In the new Microsoft Word 4.0, we have 4 views of our document. We have the galley view, which you're looking at right now. We have a print preview, which I'm going to show you in a moment. And we also have a page preview, which I'll also show you here in just a few moments. So we have many different ways. We have 4 different ways of showing our document. So let's go now over to File and say we would like to see what our document's going to look like when we print it. Now you will find when you go to use Word that the next kind of major obstacle is what you would like to do is you would like to make your document, or you'd like to make Microsoft Word break the pages where you want them to break the pages rather than where it wants to break the pages. And I still know a lot of people that print out their document to see where the program's going to break the pages. Then they'll go back and they'll add lines or they'll subtract lines, trying to make it come out just where they wanted it. You don't have to do that now, so let's go back to the program here for just a moment and let me show you a few little tricks. First of all, in the new 4.0, it will automatically show you where your page breaks are. You will find little dotted lines coming through your documents, right, like right here, where it's going to put a page break. So in the old 3.02, you had to select repaginate under document, and that would put the lines in where it was going to put page breaks. Now it'll automatically put it as you are typing it. Also, if you have selected window control, which you'll find under page setup under document, that will allow it will tell the machine never allow just one line to be hanging on the next page. And so you'll see two little lines there that it'll show you where your page break's going to be, and if you only type one other line, it'll put it on that page for you. Okay, so here we are, we're looking at our document. As you're typing through your document, if you know where you want page breaks, let's say I know right now that I want a page break after that paragraph, you can put in an artificial page break. And all you have to do is click where you want the page break and hit Shift-Enter. And you'll notice that Shift-Enter puts in a page break. So as you're going through your document, if you know where you want your page break, simply hit Shift-Enter. Now if there's somewhere down the line you decide you do not want that page break, simply highlight it like you would a line of copy, hit your backspace key, and it will disappear. So for a page break that you know you want, simply hit Shift-Enter. All right, now we want to see what our document's going to look like when it's printed, so we come up under File and go down to what is now called Print Preview. Print Preview. And you will notice that there is a nice little thumbnail sketch of what your document's going to look like when it's printed. Now, if some of you on the screen suddenly think you went blind and you can't read that, don't worry about it. I can't read it on the computer screen either. It is simply there to give you a thumbnail sketch of what your document is going to look like when you print it. Now, you will notice there are 4 icons on the side here to use in Print Preview. Back on 3.02, you used to have a little magnifying glass. And then what that allowed you to do is to click on the magnifying glass, come over into your document, click, and it would blow up the document so you would read it. In the new 4.0, you don't need that magnifying glass because you now have what is called Page Preview. Now, Page Preview, when you click on it, will look just like your galley view. It'll look just like what you've been typing. But there are two major changes. There are two differences between looking at it in the galley view and when you're looking at it in the page view. And what those changes are this. Back in the old 3.02, when you were just typing along, and also when you're just in galley view in Microsoft 4.0, if you do side-by-side columns, you do the commands, but you don't see on the screen what it's going to look like. The old what you see is not what you're going to get. If you used headers or footers or some other of the features that the 3.02 had, you never saw what they were going to look like. It'd print out, look great, but all you saw was the commands, and they felt like that was a real disadvantage. So what they have created now is Page View. And when you click on Page View in your program, it will look just like your galley view, except you will see everything that you'll see exactly what you're going to get. Now, I mentioned there are 2 items. The second item is it is extremely slow when you're in Page View. As a matter of fact, unless you have 2 to 4 megabytes of internal memory, and most of you that have Mac Pluses or have SEs, the standard SE, only have 1 megabyte of internal memory, it'll get so slow that you won't like to work in it. In fact, I've had a lot of people say they went back to 3.02 because they got tired of working with 4.0 in the page view. Now, if you have a Mac 2 or you have one of the new 2CXs or you have installed more internal memory in your machine, then you won't notice a great difference. So you will notice that. Also, let me mention one other item that just pops up, and that is if you have version 3.02 of PageMaker, or 3.01, excuse me, of PageMaker, you will find that you can't load the new versions of 4.0 Word into it. Now let me say that again. Some of you will, here you'll work up a brand new document in 4.0, you'll go to load it into your PageMaker program, and all of a sudden you'll get a little dialog box that says your document is incompatible. Now, at the timing of this tape, and the tape always gets out of date very quickly, but right now there is a new version for $25 from PageMaker called 3.02, I think, that now accepts 4.0 documents. Now, if you go to place it and it won't place, all you have to do is go to Page Setup, and it'll ask you, or excuse me, go to Save As, and it will allow you to save your document as a 3.02 document. I know that sounds kind of strange, but when they came out with the new 4.0, it won't load into PageMaker. Save it as a 3.02 document and it'll load fine. All right, let's go back now to then the print preview. This is going to look like when we print it out. You'll notice you've got a brand new little icon down here, which is your printer. That allows you, once you've looked at this and you say, hey, this looks fine, to simply hit the printer and it'll go right into your print mode. Now you've got other icons here. Right now it's showing me page 1 and page 2. If I want to see other pages in my document, I simply click on the arrows and now you'll notice I see page 2 and page 3. If I want to go back, I simply click on the top and there is page 1 and page 2 again. So what that allows you to do going up and down the scrolling bar is to scroll through your pages. If you click on this icon, it will show you your pages 1 at a time. If you click on it again, it will show you your pages 2 at a time. I personally like to look at mine 1 at a time so that I can judge each page and see exactly what I want it to look like. All right, so there is page 1 and 2, and the next one, the next icon, the second little icon, allows you to see your margins. So if I click on that icon, you will notice immediately that here are my margins. I click over on this page, there are my margins. So what that allows me to do, there's my top margin, which is 1 inch, my bottom margin, which is 1 inch, and there are my side margins. While you are in print preview, you can now click on these boxes and you can literally move your margins. Now notice the little box, or notice right in the center of the screen at the top, that it will tell me where I'm at. So if I need a 1/2 inch margin, if I come down I want my 1 inch margin, it allows me to move my margins. Now one little hint of caution is that if you move your margins, let's say that right now you said, well, I'd like to force some of my copy up onto the second page, I'm going to create a 3-inch margin down here at the bottom, so it has to do that. Please remember that whenever you change a margin in print preview, that will change that margin on every page in your document. So if I create a 2-inch margin at the bottom of this page, it will also create a 2-inch margin on all my pages in my document, so be careful with that. So that is what that is for. Now, there are some other features on here, and one of them is that you can also change your page break right while you're in print preview. Now notice Randy's Ready reference here used to be on page 2, and here was my page break, and I said, well, I really want my page break to be down here a ways. And so I can move that page break, and I can set this. So you can see now how simple it is that you simply call up page 1, you set your page break where you want it, and you go to page 2, and you can come down. Sometimes your page break is hidden under your bottom margin. There it is right there. You can move that to where you would like it, and you can literally move your page breaks anywhere that you want them as you are previewing your document, which is a nice option. Okay, we've got one icon left, and that is for putting page numbers in Microsoft Word. In Microsoft Word, by the way, there are 3 different ways that you can put page numbers into your document. A lady came up to me one day and she says, what I would like to do is I'm printing a book. I'd like the first 5 pages not to have any page numbers at all. I'd like the next 5 to have Roman numerals, and then I would like the rest of them just in Arabic numbers. If you're going to do that, you have to use style sheets or create sections in your document, and you can give each one of those a different numbering system. And we'll teach you how to do that on the advanced tape. So there are 3 ways of using page numbers in Microsoft Word. Number 1 is you can use style sheets and sections. We'll show you how to do that. Number 2 is that you can use headers and footers. And we also teach you how to do that on the advanced tape, but you can put page numbers in your header or in your footer. Now, the third way you can do right here, and that is if all you want to do is simply number your pages from number 1 through number 30, and you don't want to change the style or the size, you just want to simply number them, come up and click on the first icon. Now if you click on the first icon, you'll notice that my arrow now turned into the number 1. If I want now to put a page number, I simply come into my document and I can put my page number wherever I would like that page number to reside. So right now if I click there, you will now notice a little 1 has appeared, and there will be a number 2 and 3 and 4 and all the way. Now some of you that are going to be watching this tape figured out how to put page numbers in your document. And I would guess that not very many of you figured out how to take them off. In fact, I ask all my classes when I teach, have any of you figured out how to take the page number off your document? And of all the classes I've taught, I've only ever had one person raise their hand and say, I did. And I said, how did you get it off? And he said, I used whiteout. So let me show you how to get that page number off. The first key to getting the page number off your document is that you have to make sure your margins are showing. So you have to click on that third icon. You will notice that when you click on that third icon, it puts a little box around the page number. Now that the little box is on the page number, you can pull that little box off the screen, and when you reformat your document, you will notice that the page number has disappeared. So again, click on the second icon that puts the margin symbols, the margin lines, then go down to the page number that has a little box on it, pull that page number off the screen, and when you reformat your document, you will notice that the page number has now disappeared. All right, that's how to work in page preview. So now let's cancel that and let's go back to our document. You'll notice now that our document is ready to print. Now, let me give you a few keys to printing, and I won't show you this on the screen, but I'll just tell you the steps that you need to go through, and I'll quote through some of them here on the screen. The new 4.0 has eliminated a couple of the steps that I'm going to tell you. I'll walk through all of them for some of you folks that might still have 3.02. Some of you may have noticed that you spent a great deal of time on your document and you got your formatting just right. You got your margins set just where you want them. You had all your tabs set just right. And then at the last minute you'll say, I want my document to look really good. I'm going to go print this on a laser printer. And you'll go down to your Apple store, or you'll go to another department in your company, and you'll stick the disk in the laser printer and another computer there, and it'll print out, and all your formatting has gone all skiwampus on it. Everything's hanging all over the place. And this gets really frustrating, and some people think that it was something wrong with the second computer. The reason that this happens is that the image writer has a printing surface or a printing area that is actually 1/2 inch larger than the printing area on a laser printer. Now if you think about that for a minute, if you have formatted your document for an image writer and it's utilized all that space, when it goes to the laser printer, it's got to change your formatting. So let me show you a step-by-step procedure. As soon as you know what printer you're going to print your document on, if you'll go through this step-by-step procedure, then your formatting will remain intact no matter which printer you print it on. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to take you through all the steps for any 3.02 people out there, and you 4.0 people, it automatically skips a couple of these steps. So let me walk you through it. The first thing that you do when you know what printer you're going to use is go up under the Apple menu and go to Chooser. And when you open up Chooser, it will show you a little picture of all of the printers that you have installed in your system. Now most of you will find an image writer, a laser writer, you may have an LQ printer picture, or the icon for a Veritype machine, or whatever you happen to have in your office. Now, all you do now is click on the printer that you're going to be using. So right now I'm going to be using a laser writer. So the minute that happens, simply click on the laser writer, a little box will come up and say OK on it, and now close the box. Now when the box is closed, now go under File and go to Page Setup. And when your Page Setup box opens, simply click on OK. Now in the new Word 4.0, you didn't have to go through that last step. I always do it just to make sure. What that basically does is you told the computer by going to the chooser which printer it was going to print on, then you have to lock in that choice by going to Page Setup and saying OK. Now the last step is to simply go to repaginate, Now on Word 4.0 you don't have to do that, it's repaginate now. It'll automatically go ahead and reformat your document. But for you 3.02 people, just simply go through the repaginate now. It will go through and reformat your document to fit those new parameters. So that's how you make it look good on the printer when it comes out. All right, our document's looking pretty good. The next thing that I want to go through is to show you how to set your default, how to set default. Now what I mean by that is when you open up your computer, you will notice that it usually starts in Geneva. I never use Geneva, and I use Times, and so I always had to go up and up under Font, choose Times, and away I went. It also always started in 10 point. I wanted to start in 12, so I had to change that. There is a way to set your computer so that it'll always start in the format, in the style, in the font, and the size that you want. So let me walk you through that procedure here very quickly. First, go under Format, and you want to go under Format to Define Styles. Under Format to Define Styles, and your Define Styles dialog box will open. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to set the normal style for your computer and for Microsoft Word, so click on Normal. So remember, your first step, once you have gone under Format to Define Styles, is to click on Normal. Now you'll look down and it says Font, Boston, 10 point, Flush Left. That's the normal setting. Now if you want to change that, simply go up under and pull your font menu down and select the one you want. I want Times. And I also want it to start in 12 point. Now if you'll look down, you'll notice it says font times 12-point flush left. Last step is to simply reach over and click on Set Default. And it will now set that default for you, okay? So let me walk you through that again very quickly. Go under Format, to Define Styles. Open up your Define Styles box, click on Normal. Then reach up under your font menu, pull down the font, pull down and select the font and the size that you want, and hit Set Default. And you always look down and it will list the ones and that'll tell you if you did it correctly or not. All right, let's cancel that out. Now, the next little feature I'd like to show you, which is available both on 3.0 and 4.0, is a great time saver, and that is called the glossary. Now, I have probably used the glossary more than almost any feature in Microsoft Word. A few years ago, I used to teach a class on raising self-esteem. I've met with many so-called successful people as I travel about, and I found that the basics of almost any success, whether that be in a marriage or as a child, as a parent, or academically or in a career, is what you think of yourself. So I used to give tests, and at the beginning of the class I'd give everybody an 18-question test that tested their self-esteem. Now I had a 3-page kind of an analysis depending on how many questions you got right. So if I gave you a test and you got 6 right, I had to type out 3-page analysis. If you got 8 right, I had to type out another one. And I used to spend all my time after these classes typing out these analyses. I wished that I could have saved those analyses under a key, such as 2 right, 4 right, 6 right, and then whenever I type that in, call those up. Well, you can do that in Word. So let me walk you through the process of using your glossary, which is a storage area, which allows you to store something and come back and pull that out at any time by using a keyword. So let's go down and open up our glossary. Now, one of the things that I use the most in my documents, since most of the time I type letters, is I use my signature. Sincerely yours, Randall D. Smith, President. I'd like to put that in my glossary. So the first step to putting something in your glossary, now this can be 1 word or it can be 3 pages, it doesn't matter, is to simply highlight it. Now what you're going to do is you're going to come down under Edit and you're going to open up your glossary. So we open up our glossary. Now those of you in 4.0 will notice that there's a whole bunch of things already in your glossary. What I need to do now is give the item that I'm putting in my glossary a name, a keyword. Now this is my signature, so I will type in Randy. That's going to be the keyword. Then simply click on Define. Now that puts that in your glossary and gives it the keyword. Now let me show you how that works. Let me say I'm typing along in my letter, I get to the end, it's time for my signature. Now there's 2 ways of accessing the glossary. Let me show you the long way so you know how it works. I simply go up and open up glossary, and now I find my name that's in there and put insert. And there it is. Now some of you might say, well gee, it took you as long to do that as it would to type it. Well, if it had been 3 pages, that wouldn't have been the case. But there is a quicker way to do it. So let me get rid of this again. All you have to do to access your glossary is to hit the Command backspace key. Command backspace, and you'll notice down the lower left-hand corner, it now prompts you for the name. Type in the name, hit your return key, and there it is. Now, I will do that quickly now so you can see what a time saver that is. I get to the end, I hit Command backspace, type in the keyword, hit return, and there it is. Now, you can picture with the test where I was doing page after page, all I do is say number 3, and there'd be my 3 pages. Now, there are many uses for the glossary. Let's say if any of you that are watching the tape happen to be in education. Let's say that some of you do customer service letters, and let's say that you have to do a lot of customer service letters and you always, first paragraph's always the same, dear customer, thank you for your inquiry, but then sometimes you have one of 3 different second paragraphs and one of 4 different third ones and then your name. Well, all you have to do now is put in the first paragraph and call that customer 1, and then second paragraph, that's customer 2 ABC, and type in each one of them, put them in your glossary, and the third one, call that, the one says thank you for your order, the other one says drop dead, or whatever, and then the fourth one's your signature. Now picture this, it's time to type the letter, you simply hit your Command backspace key and put in first paragraph. There it is. Now put in option B, and third paragraph option C, and signature, and your entire letter is typed, and you haven't typed anything in yet except the keywords. So if you will utilize that glossary, you will find an amazing time saver, a great time saver in what you do. All right, the last item that we're going to cover in this basics tape on Microsoft Word is keycaps. Now keycaps, what that simply means, if you're familiar on your old typewriter, if you used to hit an L, you got an L, and if you hit the Shift L, then you got an uppercase L. So what you knew is that there were other items hiding underneath the keys. Well, on your Macintosh computer, you got all kinds of letters and symbols and little icons hiding under the keys. So let's access those. First thing that you do is go under the Apple menu and open up keycaps. And that will show you a nice little keyboard. Now what that basically says is if I come along and I press an S, that's what I'm going to get. Now the next step is to be sure to go under keycaps and select the typeface that you're in. Sometimes there are different symbols under different typefaces. Now I'm in Times, so I will select Times. As I look down at my keyboard, what that basically says is if I push a Y, I'm going to get a Y. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to hold down my Option key. Now as you will notice, when I hold down my Option key, the entire keyboard changes. That says that if I ever go to my keyboard and I hit Option 2, I'm going to get a trademark symbol. If I get Option 3, I'm going to get, and I think that is the English pound symbol. If I hit Option 4, I'm going to get the cent mark. We've got infinity symbols. We have got registration marks. We've got a copyright symbol. By the way, if any of you ever want to use bullets in your documents, Option 8 is your bullet symbol. And you'll notice your little chevron down there that you'll use when you're doing mail merges, which we'll teach you in the advanced tape. And you've got the pi symbol and you've got check marks. Now, many programs allow you to, or many fonts allow you not only to push the Option, but you can also push the Option Shift key and get an entire different group of keys. Now you'll notice that Option Shift K is the Apple symbol. Option Shift O gives you a bigger null symbol, and right down here is a little symbol that I used to think was the California Angels, and then somebody told me that was the angstrom symbol. If any of you are using Spanish and you need the upside down exclamation point or question mark, you will also find those under your keycaps. So the keycaps will allow you many, and some of them, if you hold down your Command key, will give you a different list. One thing to be careful of is a lot of times you'll be looking for perhaps a little box to put into order blank. Many of the programs will show a box if there is nothing under that key. So be a little careful. If you see a box, a lot of times you'll type that and wonder why your box is not showing up. Last little item under keycaps that you may want to use is a lot of times you will want to put an accent mark if you are using, or the little two dots that you use in German. And you will not want that to be in a space by itself, but what you really want is you'll want that to be over a letter. So let me show you how to put an accent mark over a letter. All you do is hit Option E. Now when you hit Option E, you'll notice nothing happens. But now if you hit a letter, you will see that the letter appears with the accent mark over it. So let me do that one more time. Option O, for example, Option E. If you'll hit that and then hit the O, then that will put the accent mark over the O. And that is keycaps. Okay, that is the end of the Microsoft Word 4.0 Basics class. Here are just a few little concluding remarks that I'd like to make. I found some ironies in using the Macintosh computer and Microsoft Word, and that is basically everybody wants more speed. We have got very speed-oriented. A few years ago, I remember I wanted to play better golf, so I went out and bought a new set of golf clubs. A few years back before that, I wanted to ski better, so I went out and bought new skis. And I somehow had this strange feeling that if I kept buying new equipment, then I would get better. And so what I ended up being probably is the worst golfer on the course with the best clothes and the best clubs. And what I've noticed is we've got kind of that same little delusion when it comes to the Apple computer and the Macintosh computer. If you want more speed, yes, you can go out and buy you a new 2CX with 80 megabyte hard drive and 8 megabytes of internal memory, and you can go out and buy accelerator boards for your SE, and you can do all kinds of things that will make a difference in microseconds. But if you really want to get fast on a program, the best money that you can spend is on training. You can save hours by increasing your level of expertise. You can save microseconds by changing your hardware and your software. I would rather have an employee on an old Macintosh Plus who had been to Mac Academy or who had sat down with these tapes and then went and practiced I would rather have that than somebody on the latest equipment who just sat down and is basically, I saw an article the other day and I remember the headline was the difference between knowing what you're doing and just messing around. We have a lot of people that are basically just messing around on the computer. The best way to use this video, by the way, since I mentioned the computer works with pictures, they're concepts, and the best way to learn concepts is to see the concepts. Some of you, while you're watching this, may have your computer hooked up next to your TV set and you're going along trying to follow along. I wouldn't recommend that. Maybe this is too late to say it on the video. The best way to learn this is to sit back and watch this video a couple of times. Bring your friends in, bring the people you work with, and sit down and watch this. See the concepts happen, see it happen on the screen, then go and practice. A lot of people ask me about hands-on training. There's a problem with hands-on training, and by the way, hands-on training was created for the IBM. And the reason is that the entire focus of hands-on training is the keyboard on the IBM. You'll notice if you ever use one, you spend all your time looking at the keyboard. The focus on the Macintosh is the screen of the Macintosh, watching pictures, watching things, concepts happening. The best thing that you can do is to sit down and watch them happen, see them happen, watch it a couple of times. Now you also notice there's a little counter here on the bottom of the screen. That allows you to look at the back of the tape package, and if you want to find out where mail merge was, or if you want to find out how to do a glossary, or you want to find out how to use the ruler, you can look that up on the back of the package, and then you can fast forward your tape machine to that point and watch that over again. We sincerely appreciate your business. Mac Academy has grown by leaps and bounds over the last 2 years. We train more people on the Macintosh than any other company in the world, for that matter. And the only way it has worked is that we have had some excellent customers who have enjoyed what we have taught them. They've gone back to their companies and they said, hey, these guys do a good job. And they've sent them to our live Mac Academies or Mac Academy 2 on desktop publishing, or they purchase our videos. If you have any questions, the phone number on the back of the videotape, give us a call. We'd be glad to help you. Again, we thank you for your interest and wish you a great deal of luck in using Microsoft Word.